Okay, so 1 Thessalonians 5:17 says, pray continually. And every time like we're asked about prayer, or whenever someone asks you like, how do I pray?
Yeah.
You're always like, get up and spend 5 minutes or 10 minutes with God. And in 1 Thessalonians 5:17, Paul challenges that notion. And he says, actually, prayer is not something that you have a time block for, or like something you do either in the beginning of the day or when you go to sleep. But he says you are to pray continually, meaning you have to pray throughout the day. And it's not a verbal prayer. It's the prayer of your thoughts, right? And so this whole idea of God consciousness, which I never really like heard about before. And basically, he says that when he tells the Thessalonians, when you pray continually, what he's saying is you have to be in this state of God consciousness the whole day. And every time I ask people, or even when people come and ask me about prayer, I don't say this. I don't offer this answer. Now, when I think about this, I'm like, okay, so if what he's challenging us to do is godly consciousness, then how do you be in a state of God consciousness? Like if we're to pray continually, and if that means to be in a God conscious state the whole day, then how do we do it?
To answer that question, I think you have to ask what would make it hard to do that throughout your day.
Distractions. I heard someone say this. I heard someone say that God is not distant. We're just distracted. And distraction is one thing that the enemy uses to prevent you from thinking about God throughout the day, which is God consciousness. And so I'd say that that's one thing that the enemy uses and that we're actually getting used to. Like distraction is like something we know we shouldn't be distracted, but yet it's like the highest form of temptation to us.
So do we just remove our cell phones, put time limits on apps?
Yeah.
What does it look like to
But it's not even that. It's not even that, because you're going through life. For example, you and I have a daughter, right? It's not like we lock her in a room and just go, okay, we got to think about God. So we're going to come and tend to you whenever we're ready. You can't do that. And seasons, it's all about seasons. There's busy seasons. There is lighter seasons, right? And so I think it's not being like super religious, and even I don't even think it's like being super ruthless and like removing everything. I think it's more so understanding that prayer also has a lot to do with your mind than it does with what you have to say. Or like verbal prayer is just like that's all we think prayer is, and Paul's saying no, prayer also has to do something with your thoughts. And so I think I guess what gets in the way is distraction. But if we were to be practical, right, how do we practice this in our daily life? The first way to do it is to be aware of God, or to stay in full awareness of God the whole day. What do I mean by that? We should always create a space for God to be in every moment of our lives, is what I'm trying to say, right? So if you're at work, create a space for God in your thoughts. Be aware of him. Be conscious of him. Understand that he's right there with you. If you're at the gym, you're working out, create a space. Like we do the opposite. Like we try to distract ourselves from what we're doing in the moment. You know what I mean? Like I had a friend tell me the other day, like I stopped listening to music and now I'm listening to like Christian podcasts, or like I'm listening to my Bible, and I'm like, what the like that will actually help you be more God conscious than like trying to distract yourself. Or like for you sometimes, like I see you washing dishes and like watching your YouTube vlogs. There's nothing wrong with that. But like if you could create time for that content and all it's doing is just entertaining you, then like why can't you do that for God? You know what I mean? Why can't you create situations throughout your day where you invite God? And so I think the first way to practice God consciousness or to pray continually with our thoughts is to stay aware of God at all times. You ever see those people who are like kind of annoying with their faith? You know what I'm talking about? Like they're just like, oh, thank you, Jesus. Or God did this. God did that. God did this. And it's like, you're literally saying God about everything. And although we think those people are annoying, I really think that that's what it means to stay aware. Someone called it daily encounters with God. You know, like that one lady that walked up to us when we were at the park. And we were just, you know, pushing Haven on the swing. And first of all, I was scared. I'll be honest with you. I was like, what is she trying to say to us? And when she says, she quotes Genesis and she says, be good stewards of what God has placed in your hand. To me, that's like God speaking to us, but us also recognizing and being aware of the moment. Right. You know what I mean? And I feel like if we're not in that God conscious state, if we're not staying aware, if we're not praying continually, not with our words, but with our mind, then we're missing God opportunities throughout the day. So I feel like that's the first thing. What do you think?
How would you tell someone who is experiencing a lot of distraction in their life? How would you encourage them in the season that they're in right now, to where they feel like they can't have those God encounters?
One, like, first of all, you have to assume the role of a child. Like, you're a child of God. And all that prayer does is, a lot of people say prayer is about communication. I don't think it's just about communication with God. I think it's also connection. So you have to understand, it's not that your father doesn't love you, but it's that your father wants to communicate with you, wants to commune with you, wants to have a connection with you. So I think it's start there, right? And then once you understand that, then you have to say, how much more of my time goes to allowing my mind to think of God throughout the day versus entertainment. I mean, we even use entertainment as a form of numbing, like, our pain, or like relaxation and like comfort. And it's just like, oh, I'm trying to, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Not letting loose, but like, I don't know. I forgot the word. But anyway.
Unwind?
Huh? Unwind. I can't think of the word right now. But basically this idea that the best way to face the trials of life is through distraction. And this is the lie that the enemy feeds you. But the best way to actually face the trials of life is through God consciousness, praying continually, always thinking about God. And so what I would say is create opportunities throughout the day. The moment you are tempted to distract yourself from life, use that as an opportunity to focus more on God. So that's what I would say. The second thing I will say, the best way to practice God consciousness would be have the mindset of surrender and dependence. I believe James chapter 4 says this. It says, submit yourselves to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee. So when we're in this God conscious state, not only are we aware of God the entire day, which is, again, it just blows my mind that this is a form of prayer. Nothing verbal, and it's all in the mind. Now we can just stay aware of God, and then also we have to practice the mindset of surrender and dependence. And James chapter 4 says, submit yourself to God. Submission is surrender and dependence. So if we submit, what's the result of our submission to God in our mind? We resist the enemy. Now, resisting the devil does not mean the devil is completely out of your life and he will never come back. You had said this. When you resist a craving, it's not that you hate the craving. or that you completely hate the craving, or that the craving is never going to come back. It's just you've resisted it for the moment. And I think when we are in this God consciousness and we submit to God and we have the mindset of dependence and surrender, what we're doing is, because we are submitted, we are resisting the devil. Now the devil, this is how the devil tries to attack your mind, through anxiety, through stress, through worry, having you think about your life and being preoccupied about the future, and just making you so self-absorbed in a way. And by doing that, what he's actually doing is he's robbing you from your right as a child of God to be in the presence of God. So imagine every time you face trial, or every time things don't work out, when you get laid off, when you're short on money, and when you're applying for a job and nobody's calling you back, and you're just in this tough season, right? Imagine in that moment, instead of freaking out, you just submit. You surrender and depend on God. There's no way the devil can attack you. There's no way the devil could like make you feel like God has abandoned you, or make you, even tempt you to give up on the promise that God has for you. And so that's what I would say the second thing is that.
What would you say to the person that says you have no idea what it's like to actually go through a really difficult season and have to submit your anxieties or stress to God? Your life is so put together.
Yeah. Well, I would just say choose how to go about things, right? Like, what type of solution has worry ever gotten you, right? What type of answer ever came from anxiety? What breakthrough ever came out of abandoning God and doing it on your own? I think it's easy. I think it's easy because it's harder to depend on yourself, and it's easier to submit to God. You know what I mean? Like it's harder to figure it out by yourself, and it's easier to allow God to take care of stuff for you. And I mean, do we believe Romans 8:28? Do we believe I will work all things together for the good of those that love me and are called according to my purpose? Do we really believe in that? And so what I'd say to that person is, I promise you, it's easier to submit to God than it is to do it your way. And lastly, this is kind of like the benefit of being a person who's always conscious about God, a person who always has the mindset of, I'm going to surrender and dependent on God. And I feel like what will happen is we will begin to reflect the presence of God in our lives, which is like the sweet spot where we want to be. Instead of reacting to life, we will begin to affect life. Like, have you know someone who's always like, man, tell me I'm loved. Like, tell me you love me. Tell me you love me. I need more love. I need to be told that I'm loved by people. Or like, person that's always longing for peace, always longing to be served, always longing to be encouraged. The best way to get out of that state into the person that is giving hope and giving love and encouraging people is to be God conscious. And that's what God's goal is for us. God's goal for us, for our lives, is for us to get out of our flesh, which says self, to now reflecting the reality of heaven on earth through the power of the Holy Spirit, right? So the more we're thinking of God, the more we are surrendered to God, the more we depend on God, the more we begin to expose the people around us to the presence of God. When people are next to you, they no longer feel just you. They feel as if God is next to them. You know, they feel encouraged. They feel safe. They feel like they can be themselves. But that doesn't accidentally happen. You must get out of the flesh and be in the realm of the spirit. Every second, every minute of the day, you just tell your mind, I will surrender and I'll depend. This is my strength. The presence of God is my strength. Then what will begin to happen is you will literally start reflecting the presence of God. Now watch what Jesus says in Matthew 6. When you pray, say, let your kingdom come, let your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. What is Jesus saying? He's saying the moment you align yourself with the kingdom's purpose, with heaven, then what I will do here on earth is a reality of what heaven's going to look like. And I'm doing this through you, through the people that are connected to me. 1 Thessalonians 5:17, literally 2 words, pray continually. And I think the answer to a lifestyle that struggles with prayer is to understand that prayer is not something you leave in your room or in your house. Prayer is something that you take with you.